This is the first of two lessons taking a look at cell structure and function. We've talked about cells quite a bit lately. Now we want to take a look at the components within them, what their functions actually are, what do they do, and how does that relate to the overall function of a cell. So the first thing we want to understand about cells is the idea of compartmentalization. If we imagine a cell as being a balloon, right, there is a membrane or a barrier around the outside. It's not just open space on the inside. There are different compartments meant to do different things that have different roles, different functions within the cell. So that idea is called compartmentalization. So the divisions between the different compartments are made up of membranes, and there are membranes that divide the cell into these different locations or compartments. This is important so that cells can have reactions that occur in ideal environments. So imagine your house as the cell. You have walls that differentiate between the different rooms, say your bedroom, your bathroom, your kitchen. Same thing within a cell. There are different locations that reactions occur. You don't want the reactions that occur in your bathroom to be happening in your kitchen at the same time. So there is compartmentalization to keep those reactions separate. Reactions can occur in a series and close enough to one another that they can kind of build on one another, right? So let's imagine, go back to the house analogy again. If you have your kitchen next to your dining room, you want the reactions of cooking to take place right next to or close to the area where you're actually going to be consuming or eating the food. Same thing in a cell. They can put different areas together that have reactions that take place sequentially. Enzymes for a particular reaction can be built into a membrane. Same thing in that house analogy. You can put shelves in your wall, or you can put doors in a wall. You can build things, or cells can have things built into that membrane that are going to allow it to do its job a little bit better. Enzymes are meant to speed up reactions, make them happen faster. They're catalysts. So by building them into that membrane or into that wall, it allows that location to do something faster than it would if they weren't built in. And lastly, compartmentalization is important because different reactions require different conditions. So it allows lots of different reactions to happen simultaneously. Some reactions require different pHs than others. If they can't have that ideal environment, they can't work. So if there was no compartmentalization, either it's an all or nothing. So same thing with your cell. You want different conditions. Maybe you want a certain area to be very warm, whereas another area is rather cool. Compartmentalization allows that to happen in your house as well as in a cell.
So in this part 1 video, we're going to function on the organelle's functions. We'll leave the location and the structure to part 2 of the video. We're also going to be concerned with whether they're found in plant, animal, or both types of cells. So the first organelle we're going to take a look at is the nucleus. Now, as you can see with the animal cell up top, the plant cell down the bottom, there is a nucleus in fact in both cells. And the nucleus's main function is to act as the control center of the cell. And the reason is because it contains the genetic information, and it contains the DNA, which then has all that information that can control the other parts of the cell and dictates what that cell's function is. Inside the nucleus, there is a condensed region called the nucleolus. It is the site where ribosomes are formed. The next major organelle we're going to take a look at are ribosomes. Ribosomes, you can see, are both in animal and plant cells. They can be free-floating in the cytoplasm, or they can be attached to the endoplasmic reticulum, as seen in the images over here. The function of the ribosome is to produce proteins, and they do so by attaching amino acids together by what are called peptide bonds. Those proteins can then go and do other functions in the cell. They can act like enzymes and speed up reactions. They can act as kind of doorways or gates in the cell membrane, allowing things in or out, so providing a variety of different functions within the cell. Next up is the mitochondria. Now, the mitochondria is in both animal and plant cells. We take a look at it, we recognize it because it kind of looks like a peanut with some squiggles or a folded membrane on the inside. It is in plant cells as well. And this is the organelle that breaks down food molecules, primarily sugars, in the presence of oxygen to make ATP, or energy. That's the energy currency of both plant and animal cells. Big misconception is that plant cells don't have them because they make their own energy. That is false. They make their own food, but they need the mitochondria to then break down that food or the sugar to make the energy. So you can see that there are in fact mitochondria inside the cell. Now, mitochondrion is the singular, mitochondria is plural. Each cell has many mitochondria and many ribosomes. Often in simplified versions, you'll see 1 or 2 just because it is just that, a simplified version of a cell. Okay, when we refer to the plasma membrane, also referred to as the cell membrane, it is the outermost layer of an animal cell, and it is the outermost layer of a plant cell. So its job is it is a selectively permeable membrane, meaning that some things can get through and some things can't. It selects what can and can't get through. And that's usually based on size or on charge. And its role is to maintain intracellular environment. So keep the things inside the cell that should be inside the cell and keep the things outside that should be outside. So again, it's around the outside of an animal cell, and in a plant cell, it's just inside the cell wall, but they do have a cell membrane as well. Mentioning the cell wall, it's only in plant cells. Its job is to offer protection and structural support because those cells are more rigid than ones in animal tissues because plants really don't move as much as animals. Okay, cytoplasm is the next one. This is the jelly-like fluid that fills the entire cell. Its job is support and protect organelles and allow for the movement of substances. So it is what all of these organelles are embedded in or floating around in. If you didn't have it, all the organelles would squish to the bottom and they would actually damage each other. And it actually kind of flows like water and allows organelles and nutrients and gases to move around within both animal and plant cells so that things can actually move. Next one up is the endoplasmic reticulum. Now, it has 2 parts, a rough and a smooth. You always can recognize the endoplasmic reticulum because it is attached to the nucleus in both the animal and the plant cells. It's kind of looks like a stack of pancakes, but it's always the one closest to the nucleus. Now, the rough ER, or the rough endoplasmic reticulum, is rough because it is embedded with ribosomes. Now, if we think and remember what the function of a ribosome was to make proteins, the function of the rough endoplasmic reticulum is protein synthesis, or the formation of proteins, as well as it processes those proteins and packages them so that they can move within the cell. There is a part of the endoplasmic reticulum that does not have any ribosomes on it, and that is known as the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, because when looked at under a microscope, it looks smooth. And its role is lipid or fat synthesis and processing and packaging of those lipids for them to move around within the cell. Okay, so in both animal and plant cells, we'll find the endoplasmic reticulum, or the ER. Chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are only in plant cells. Okay? They're the organelle that are going to take sun's energy and convert it into food for the plant cells, primarily sugars or cellulose or other carbohydrate structures. So they make the sugars, the mitochondria then take those sugars and turn them into energy for plant cells. Golgi complex, not to be confused with the ER. It is in both the animal cells, we can see here, and it's in the plant cell. It's also a flattened stack of membranes, but its job is to package and process proteins for transport out of the cell. Okay, so the ER transports inside. The Golgi is kind of like the UPS or the Canada Post. They package them up to be leaving the cell. Large central vacuole, that is this area right here inside a plant cell. It is the organelle that stores water and other materials, and this is because plants can't move around and acquire nutrients and acquire water whenever they need it. So they need to store it when there's an abundance of it, so that when there's time of need, they have it available. Animal cells do have small vacuoles, but they do not have one big large central vacuole, which is unique to plant cells. Lysosomes. These are organelles that are responsible for breaking down or digesting food particles, waste particles, cell parts, any foreign invaders that accidentally get into that cell. They are seen primarily in animal cells. There are a few types of plant cells that will have them. Plant cells such as a Venus flytrap, because it's actually digesting proteins and things like that. But lysosomes are pretty much unique to animal cells and have that function of breaking down and digesting and recycling parts within the cell. Last two organelles we're going to take a look at are vesicles, which are found in both plant and animal cells. Their job is to transport materials and also storage of chemicals and enzymes for use later on inside the cell. A vesicle is literally just a transport bubble. So it is a membrane that has made a bubble and moves around within the plant or the animal cell. So when we say that the ER packages things and for movement inside the cell, it packages them in vesicles, which can then move around inside the cell. They can also store particular digestive enzymes or chemicals that can be used, and it allows for a unique environment so it won't break down everything, only the particular things it comes in contact with. The last organelle is the cytoskeleton, primarily in animal cells, and it's responsible for structural support and movement of organelles. So especially in cell division, you'll see the cytoskeleton in the animal cells pulling the chromosomes or the genetic material to opposite sides of the cells and responsible for moving a lot more of those organelles. Okay? Plant cells do have some components of the cytoskeleton, but it's much more complex inside the animal cell. What I'd like you to do is just pause the video right now, see how many of those organelles you can label on the cells on your own, and then restart the video and see how you did. You did. Taking a look, noticing that the cell membrane is also called the plasma membrane. Vacuoles, small in animal cells, large in plant cells. Ribosomes found both in plant and animal cells. And then we have the common organelles labeled down the middle. So just double check your work, noticing that centrosome and plasmodesmata were already pre-labeled. Those are not organelles that you need to be aware of at this point in time.